Hi guys, welcome to our podcast Supposedly Adults, where we are four supposed adults sharing our quote-unquote youthful experiences.
Talking about the most random life topics.
Giving our thoughts that no one cares about.
And just trying to make life suck less.
That's right, so I'm Jensen.
I'm Melody.
This is Calvin.
And this is Lyris.
And today's random question is, what if I have a crappy personality? Hey,
Hello.
hi guys.
Hi.
What's up?
Yo, I want to say, guys, I want to say I have a serious major identity crisis.
Why?
Right
What
now.
happened?
Okay, I don't know.
It's only been a
No,
week.
seriously.
Do you feel like you're a boomer now too? Just like last week, how I felt like a boomer? Is that what happened?
You're like, am
No.
I secretly 60?
Are you now older than him? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
I don't know how to play Flappy Bird on Instagram.
Flappy
It's
Bird's
not a
dead.
thing anymore.
Flappy
Stop
Bird's
it.
dead. Get with the
my
program.
Okay.
Wait, you were saying?
No. In all seriousness. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard of MBTI.
Oh, yeah,
Myers-Briggs
Yeah.
something
16
like
personality.
the personality test. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whoever that hasn't done it yet, 16personalities.com. And we're not sponsored, but just
But
go
you
do it.
can
It's fun.
sponsor us.
Uh-huh.
Check the link below.
Okay. So I was an INFJ ever since I first done it.
What's INFJ
And
again?
It has INFJ is so I is either so the first
I only remember introvert and extrovert.
yeah so the first letter is essentially introverted or extroverted, and then the second one is sensing and intuition. The third one would be feelings and logic, and then the fourth one would be judgment and perspective. It just means whether how structured you need
Is it?
your life
I
to
think
be.
perception. I think that was the
Perception, yeah, okay. Anyway, so I've been an INFJ, so I'm an introvert, and I am a J ever since I first done this, and I always need a lot of structure in my life. I always have a to-do list every single day, and I follow it. I hate ad hoc stuff. I hate stuff changing all of a sudden. So I just need. Yeah, I just need to follow a set schedule, essentially. But then lately, I've redone this personality test again, and I became a P. And I have a major breakdown just because
welcome to the
I've been
club.
so proud. I've been so proud of being a J all my life.
Yes.
And now I'm a P. I'm like, what is going on?
Uh-huh.
So I just want to see
Plot
whether you guys
twist.
think it's possible.
Plot
for-
twist, because
for-
my sister's identity, half of it is her complaining about our whole family being P. So her whole life, her identity is built on shitting on me for not having a schedule. So now she's becoming me.
Wait, how
So I
much
guess
of a
karma's
P are you now?
bitch.
I'm like a 50-ish, 60%, but I used to be like a 90+%
Oh, wow,
J.
okay.
So in a way, I guess I'm not as anal anymore, and I'm not as uptight anymore. So I guess that's like the plus side
What's
of it.
the?
I've just a quick question. If you're 90% J, how do you have any friends? Like, I don't want to be
Wait.
your friend. Like, yo, honestly, it's
Wait.
like, oh my
Wow,
god,
you
it's her
are
again.
So
You can plan friends in your schedule, but I feel like I sort of relate because I feel like when I was younger, I was more of a J. I still remember when I did the test, I was an INFP. Then I slowly I think it just became worse and worse. No, I was an ENFP when I was younger. Then after that, I slowly became an I. And after that, I just lost. I think it just went more into INFP as I grew older and just related to it.
Really? So Jensen, you're an introvert.
Yeah. No, it's weird because when I talk to people, they think I'm an extrovert. But a lot of the
Same.
times, I don't really want to start a conversation.
Same,
All
yeah.
of your secret introverts. Wait, can we go around the table? What are we, what's our personalities?
Okay, so my personality testing also changed. So I was a ENFP.
Uh-huh.
So I was the entertainer, and I was super proud of it
Uh-huh.
because I'm like, oh, I'm an entertainer. That's
Feel,
cool.
yeah.
And then, so my percentage also changed. So I was more of an extrovert when I was younger. Now I'm closing in on introvert, but I'm still an extrovert, but I'm more like ambivert
You're
now, I
slowly
guess. It's
crossing the line.
50-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, 50-ish.
Coming
but-
to the dark side.
Yes. But then my N and S completely switched. So I was an S, and then now
Oh.
I am an N.
What's S
Yes.
in it
So-
again? What S and N?
Yeah, what's the difference
S
again?
is sensing,
Oh,
N
yeah.
is intuition.
Okay,
So
okay.
intuition kind of is, you kind of get a sense of the whole picture. Sensing is somebody who only understands stuff by like hard
Like
facts
logic,
and evidence.
being logical.
Yeah, no,
like evidence.
you need evidence for you to believe in something.
Oh wait, I thought that was feeling and something else.
Yeah, F and T, feeling and thinking.
Oh.
So that would be how you make decisions.
Yeah.
Like whether you go with, do you make decisions based on your feelings or based on logic, essentially?
Okay, so Lyris right now is the ENFP, and then myself and Melody, we are both INFP. And Calvin, what are you?
I'm an INFJ. I'm actually a J, but
Judgment.
So you-
Okay.
So much depends. So because it's everything I think is about ratio, right? So actually, for all of them, I'm hover around like the
Borderline?
50-50 zone. So that's why people keep calling me boring because I'm so
Boring people
boring.
being me.
So I guess the whole point, the test, what it shows is just that I have no personality. That's what that is, because it's a 50-50. The second thing is...
It's like neutral for all my options.
I know, right? I think as you get older, the least recognized you are. That's what happened.
No, I just have I just made an observation, right? Because it seems like there's a trend of us as we grow older, we kind of become more introverted. Like even Lyris is still an extrovert, but she is less of an extrovert. And I went from a 70% to a 95% introvert. So do you think this is a thing? Like when you grow older, you kind of get more introverted?
To be fair, like when I was younger, I remember I took the test later than my friends in school. Then I think in my mind when I was doing the test, I knew that all my other friends were extroverted. So I felt like it was a cool thing. Yeah, so and also it didn't really help that the questions were all like looking back and like redoing the
You wanted
like,
to
I
fit in,
remember I was super young,
bro.
maybe secondary 3, so that was like almost 10 years ago. Then I redid the test like 3 years ago, and then I realized that like all the questions are so like vague, so they can ask me, I like structure. Then I'm just thinking, sometimes I like structure, sometimes I don't. What context are we talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Cause okay, I am a person who do a lot of personality tests, and I also like talk about horoscope quite a bit. Not like religiously, but I like kind of talk about it sometimes.
Yeah.
As for fun. But then I still kind of understand how I've talked to people who thinks that personality tests are complete crap, like bullshit, because the questions are so vague, and also it's impossible to categorize people based on like 16 personalities.
Yeah.
And in like horoscope case, I guess we shouldn't put them together, but kind of. But like, how do you determine a person's personality based on the year they're like the month they're born in? So some people think that it's like complete, like yeah.
I agree. It's basically you saying like, I don't know, is it appropriate? Is whenever your parents get busy, that's why you have such personality. That's what horoscope's telling us, right? That's basically it. So I guess that's
Girl, what?
Wait, can you explain it again?
No.
I
So
didn't
talk
really
about
understand.
wow.
I don't want to think about
I didn't really
it.
understand.
It took me
Well.
5 seconds, and I'm like, no, stop.
So let's say if
Why?
I was born in September, I'm a Libra, which
Oh.
means
Girl.
right. So I guess,
Sorry, mom. I know you're listening.
but this is funny because this is totally nature nurture. It's all depends on that. Is it because when your parents get busy or like how do
Girl,
your
stop.
parents?
I don't want to think about that. Let's
So
not
for all
get
the
there.
listening out
Okay.
there,
Okay,
you
wait,
can
let's-
think about when you're born minus or at 10 months or 9 months, and you know what's happened
No,
around that.
why though?
Okay, wait,
Why
stop.
though?
Wait, that might be for like astrology and then like all that stuff, but like that.
Oh, I guess when the
That's-
stars
yeah.
align.
But
that's
for
exactly-
MBTI, I don't think it works the same way.
Stop.
Okay, wait. Okay, let's reset. Because,
Yeah.
let's forget
Rewind.
everything.
Wait,
that we
the
just
question
said in the past
was,
second.
when you were, did you change? Did we become introverted when we were younger?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I guess my question is, do you think your personality can change? Okay, because I come from I did my master's in psychology, so then I
Ooh,
know there are
damn.
like two major, thank you, like two major school of thought. Like one would be the fact that, personality, you can't really change personality, and another ones would be like, oh, it's completely, like, children are blank slate. You know, you can put in whatever and kind of nurture them in however way you want. So what do you guys think on that?
Oh, I just want to quickly add, this is the stuff that I talk about. This is the reason why I learned to become an introvert, because I know these things should be coming out from my mouth. So I was like, oh, I learned to shut up. So that's
So
why.
you only
That's
have one topic. You only talk about this. Is that what?
That's it.
Like there are other
Obviously.
topics.
Obviously.
Okay.
Okay, wait. Okay, so going back. Okay, we have to stop. Like Calvin, bring us to like talk
No,
about our
it's great. I
parents.
support.
Oh
I
my
support
God.
his choice.
Okay.
You make great
Sorry,
choices in your life.
Okay, so back to the like the nature nurture thing. I think, okay, I guess like you have kind of two questions, right? The first one is whether personality can change, and whether a personality is an inborn thing. Okay, fine. Okay, that's one question. Fine, sorry. I was trying to be like, I'm just gonna like analyze whatever. Okay, so I personally think that there are a bit of both. So I feel like definitely children are born with different personality. I think that's kind of for sure. For example, I have two dogs. Dogs, they have completely different personalities, and every child have their own personality. But I also think that there is a lot of different factors that shapes different people's personality, that it's like part of nurture. So for example, the family that they grew up in, the parenting style, the people they met, and stuff like that kind of shapes their personality, and societal pressure, obviously.
Yeah, I guess in that case then, right? Then my question would be, how do you guys maneuver the idea of staying true to yourself versus, trying to improve and be better? Because the whole idea, I don't know, the whole idea of personality is so fake, because if it changes constantly, like let's say 10 years down the road I'd be a different person, then I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now, because everything that I'm building on based on my current personality could change 5 years down the road. Then how do I behave?
Yeah.
How do I change on my friends group? How do I change on my routine? You know what I mean?
But then I guess the question is like, but why are we so fixated about, oh, this is right now everything I'm doing right now is based on my current personality, right? Like, why are we so fixated on that? Because if the main goal is always try to be better, right, then you're gonna constantly be changing, and it's okay, because because by recognizing this is our fault, this is the different flaws that we have, and we try to continue to work on that. So basically, we just want to become a better person, and that's the main goal. Like, why were we so focusing on what our personality is right now, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. And like just to add on, like I'm like to kind of repeat what Melody just said. Yeah, always like when you're younger, I always had like a conflict, or like even now, there's always this conflict where like I ask myself, okay, or like the messaging when you're younger is always be yourself, don't be afraid to like be your authentic, or like how you were or whatever. But like in my mind, it's just like, what am I, or like what is my personality, that kind of idea. And I guess it's like how I dealt with it over time. It's trying not to take it too seriously, of like even these personality tests, they're always just markers at different points of your life when you're doing it, or like maybe something could have happened when like you're taking the test. I guess that's always a criticism with all these personality tests. I think especially for the MBTI, I think in a few years like there was a lot of news surrounding it of whether it's actually useful to predict how you would react to certain situations when it doesn't really reflect you truly as a person, but more like it reflects you as someone at that point in time going through whatever you're going through at that age.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree with you, because, and then I think the thing is, I don't know if it's actually doing the personality to predict the future. It's more so understanding who we are at that moment, right? Because sometimes it's really hard. Like, I don't know, like how often do we actually just sit on the couch and think about it, right? Because life is so busy and all that. Like, how often do we actually have the time to sit and then just think, right? Because not everybody's like me, a loner. Because people have friends, people talk to each other. I don't, so I get to do that. But I think it's just an opportunity for people to just sit down, right, and then kind of have like a tool to help them to see it. And you don't have to completely agree with everything that's what the MBTI is telling you, right? You just kind of look at it like, oh, this is true, this is not. But then it just in a way glimpses into like who we are and how can we improve on it if this is our end goal. So I think that's the beauty of personality tests. And like, there's no possible way where you're like, oh, you're in a kid, you're like this emotional, crazy, spoiled brat, right? It's not. You shouldn't be. You know, when you're in your 20s, you keep doing the same thing. So I think that's also helped us, right? It's because you just gotta learn throughout that. So for example, if I keep making stupid jokes, I learned that I shouldn't, so that now I learned to shut up. Even though I didn't really shut up in the podcast, but this is a thing. Like, this is what you learn along the way. So yeah, I think that's the.
I don't know. I guess my question would be then, right? Then how, like, do I consciously think about my personality and try to change it for the better? And that's again another question. Like, how do we define what's better? Right? Who to say what's better? Because society tells you that extroverted people are the best, because then all the leaders, all the Google office setup, they're all benefiting extroverts and they're rewarding extroverts, right? So does that mean that extrovert is good? Do I constantly try to change my personality to kind of fit that societal, preference? Or do I have another set of betterment, or do I constantly think about it? Or because it constantly changes, I shouldn't even think about it. It does not exist. Like, you get me? I think that is like, I have more questions than answers now, guys.
So I guess like my question to that, right? That do we really think about our personality or constantly think about our action? Because would you agree that our personality or our actions is driven by our personality? Let's say I'm an introvert, right? So like, okay, well, that's why in social situation, I kind of rather lay back, kind of reserved, right? Like, for example, just an example. So do you think we should always reflect on our actions instead of thinking about personality then? Because maybe that kind of helps shaping it.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. But also, for me, I think it is also assessing how you feel. Because although feelings, like, the society tells us that feelings are irrational and subjective, therefore unimportant. But feelings are, like, as much as it is subjective, it is valid and it is real. Like, I know I shouldn't be upset for this, but I am, right? Like, I know you know what I mean? So it's like, you have to, like, be in tune to your emotions and how you feel, or how your body reacts to certain situations. Because sometimes it's not, because action seems like it's something that's very rational, or it's like a one thing, but behind the action there's actually a lot of layers, right? Because you have the feeling to it, and like, why did you do it, your motivation, a lot of things that lead up to that action. And I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, okay. Let me try to put this in an
Okay.
example, right? Because ever since when I was younger, I always feel like, I'm such an introvert, and I don't get friends when I'm an introvert. So I try to be more extroverted, and I force myself to be extroverted, and I try to talk to people, and despite I don't like it, right? And then that's how I got more friends, and I became, more normal, quote unquote. But then ever since I did this MBTI, I was like, I'm an introvert. And as I learned more about introvertedness and extrovertedness, I felt more comfortable being an introvert. And I started to embrace a lot more. So, with a networking event, I just kind of tell myself, Melody, you're an introvert. You won't like it. So just don't go. It's okay and acceptable for you to stay home. So now my question is, am I just making excuses for me to not push myself further and to step out of my comfort zone? Or am I being okay and at ease with myself? I guess that is like
I'm so afraid to answer that, because like I feel like I'm just also ignoring my other, like I'm just suppressing other things that I should be doing because of my quote unquote personality.
That's exactly how, like, what I'm struggling, like, recently as well, right? Because I also have this feeling of, I am a very judgmental
Yeah, I
person,
can tell.
right? As a child, I'm very, like, decisive, aggressive.
Attack the.
Okay.
Are you attack?
Calvin, this is confirmed. You have a crappy personality, period.
That's what I mean, right? So it's that, and then I learned that, like, from, like, experience that doing that makes people uncomfortable, right? Then I learn to, hide that part of myself. Then there are people, aka my parents, tell me that, Laris, you're overcorrecting yourself. Now you're too shy, you're too quiet, you never speak up. you are too sensitive towards how other people feel, so you censor yourself too much. So you should be yourself, you should be your authentic self, blah, 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 right? And so for the longest time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am doing that. So I'm trying to, you know, be more confident in myself, and I try to, you know, like stay true to myself, quote unquote, right? And now I sometimes am aggressive and I'm still criticized for that. So you know what I mean? So I think it's exactly what Melody was saying just then. So it's kind of like the feeling of, okay, I should be authentic. I should not overcorrect myself. I shouldn't think too much. But then what if, or I should stay true to myself and be authentic. But what if the authentic me is crap? You know what I mean? Like, what if I am just a bad person and I shouldn't be myself? Because if I be myself, then I hurt everyone. Do you know what I mean? Okay, this is getting way too real for me, bro.
Just to clarify really quickly, when you say you're trying to be yourself, you mean you're being yourself, like, so do you subscribe to the nature versus nurture, or you're just like saying yourself in general?
I guess in general. I guess it's like very loose term.
Agree. I know. I understand what you mean. I understand struggle. So, since I'm the boomer of the group, I guess I just want to tell, like, because I think what I notice about myself between the differences, because I'm 28 now, but the differences between when I was 22, like your age, till now, the biggest difference I notice about myself is that now I know a lot more about myself. I know what I'm comfortable with. I know what I'm not. So I kind of know the line that I can work within, right? So for me, I think it's always constantly finding that boundaries, right? But then when I was trying to, every time when I need to make a decision, as I'm trying, right, is that if I, instead of just thinking about myself, thinking about how I feel, like thinking about, oh, whether I like it or not, right? You start shifting the focus on thinking about the other person, right? Let's say there's so many ways of saying one thing, right? And for different people, there's different ways of communicating that thoughts, right? For example, you said you're judgmental, right? And you can think about, first of all, why are you judging? Like, is it coming from a place of love? Is it coming from a place of disgust? Like, let's say you look at my face like, Calvin, you're so ugly. Are you just telling me because like, yo, you should go clean up because I want you to look good, or be like, yo, Calvin, you look bad because I just think you look like crap, right? Like, there's that motivation is really important. And I think the second thing is that how do you present it? Because you can just straight up telling people like, yo, you're a disgusting pig, or you can just say like, hey, maybe you should go wash your face. Like, there's so many ways of actually communicating one thing. So I think that's what's important, right? Because you can have the same thought, but how do you communicate it? Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? For different people, how do you communicate it? It's important. And then also finding the boundary, like how do I be okay with myself? That's also important. So I think it's all constantly finding that balance, and I think that's what makes me different from when I was 22 and 28. Like, now I kind of know what I'm working with.
I totally see what you mean though, Calvin, right? So you kind of became more at ease with yourself. Then do you still kind of push yourself to do things that you're uncomfortable with? Because then you already know yourself and you're comfortable with it. Then why do you still need to, try to try different things, I guess?
Again, so for example, I'm an introvert. Like, one thing I can think of is, okay, I don't go initiate conversation. So when I was younger, I do, because I think, oh, you gotta be popular, you gotta go make jokes, you gotta go talk to everybody, chat everybody up, right? But as I get older, I'm more at ease with it. I was like, yeah, you know what, this is not me. I don't really have to do that, right? So I kind of go back to the state where like, oh, you know what, now I'm just super quiet. But then I realized that's not really helping the people around me. Let's say if I see people feel uncomfortable around me, or like unease, then I will actually, knowing that, like, you know what, don't think about yourself, don't think about what you want, also think about how do I make myself useful for other people. So if they're feeling uncomfortable, weird, then I'll actually initiate conversation, try to talk to them, right? So I think that's, instead of the main thing, it's just that don't always think about your action, don't always just think about from yourself, like think about how you kind of make the people around you more at ease, more happy. So that's kind of
interesting.
Kevin, are you currently finding a job right now, or have you secured a job already?
Have I secured a job?
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
What do you mean? You're thinking no
I'm
one
gonna give you extra context, right? It's not just a random question that. No, because like I feel like especially when we're like applying for university, finding a job, I think these are the like times where like Okay, side note, I love how like this started off as helping to cure Melody's identity crisis to now all of us are having an existential crisis, or at least I'm having
Girl,
one. Side note.
I'm so quiet now because I don't know what I'm
No,
doing.
but okay, yeah. So like, I'm just reflecting. When have I ever had a lot of those similar questions that will bring it up, and like I'm realizing that like it's always at a crossroad kind of point in my life where like I'm trying to find a job. I'm trying to find a path like that life is going to take me. I need to make sure that like I'm going to adjust myself. So like for me, just to bring it back to Melody's question, I do like on nature versus nurture, I do think that like some of my personality is like based on how I was like it was derived like when I was born, but most or like to a large extent I would say confidently it was like from how like I was brought up, or like how it kind of the interactions and opportunities I had like during life. And where am I going with this?
Like everybody has so much. We're breaking
Everyone's
down
having-
right now.
Everyone
I'm so
is
sorry.
so confused now.
I'm so
Oh my
sorry for
God.
bringing this up. No, but I guess okay. Wait, I'm trying to understand what Calvin just said, right? So
Okay.
So I guess that for you the definition of betterment would be to lose yourself and not be self-interested at all and just focus on what other people need. So if other people needed you to be extroverted, then you be extroverted. If other people don't need you to be, then you kind of just go back to whatever that you're comfortable with. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think you put it so much nicer than me. That's why you're a master in psychology, like you just said. And I don't know. And then you can also see that why I'm an introvert, because I don't talk to anybody, so I don't really how to articulate it. But no, this is a great point. I think that's essentially that's what we're trying to do. I don't know, like for every decision I try to make, instead of just always thinking about myself, I just try to think about how can I make myself useful for other people. How can I like you said, how can I make other people happier? How can I make people more at ease? Pick a career that helps and all that. So yeah.
I understand that that's a very ideal situation, or this is something that we all should strive for, but at the same time it is, I don't know how to put it. Okay, maybe I'm like the most selfish person in the world, for example, right? Because I think it's a Chinese thing, right? So you're always trying to make everyone happy. You can never do that though. Do you know what I mean? So a large part of my life is trying to like please everyone and make everyone happy, but then you realize that you can't do that, right? Because if you make this person happy, then the other person, like you have to choose who you want to make happy, and at the end you won't be the happy person. Okay, although you should be like, oh, if everyone is happy then I should be happy, that's the ideal, but it's not necessarily true. For example, I think as Asian, we understand, like, for example, we always want to make our parents happy, right? We always do. I do, because our parents are amazing people and they provided for us. I will be nothing without them. But then what if my parents tells me that, oh, I want you to be a doctor, and then I become a doctor, and so then they're very happy. Then in an ideal situation, yes, I am happy because they're happy, but I am also miserable. Then am I selfish for not doing that? Am I a bad person?
This is way too much now. Can we just go back and talk about like how stars are aligned and what month you're born?
No.
And can we
Wait,
just go
I
back
actually
talking
like
about
where
it?
this is going. I actually want to add to it. I think I'm thinking about that too, right? Like I care a lot about mental health, and I think that is very important for everybody. So I'm thinking, let's say, putting myself out there and chatting people up would always be good because that's what society likes and wants, right? But if, let's say, I force myself to go to every single networking event, I'd want to shoot myself and I'd be miserable as well. So I guess the thing is, how do you strike a balance? I think that is ultimately, I think Chinese has this big saying about, just finding the middle ground, and I think that's amazing. I guess I would like to know, like, tips that you guys use to kind of balance yourself out.
What's your tips?
I don't
Keep
know.
asking
I'm
us.
the one
I
with
think
the
you should just
crisis.
tell
You're
the
supposed to
truth.
help me. No. I know. Okay. I personally, what I try to think in a way is, I constantly reflect on myself and reflect on my fault to see if I can improve and do better, but then try to not do too much negative self-talk and try not to drill myself too much or hate myself too much. Because I used to, let's say if I send an email at work, I have a job, by the way, Jansen. But let's say if I send an email and it's
Okay.
let's say if I'm supposed to send this email to Jansen, right? And then I wrote Dear Calvin and I sent it out, and I would always beat myself to it so badly because I'm like, oh, that makes me look like a very careless person. I'm so unprofessional. This is such a basic mistake. How could I make this mistake? And I would hate myself and shit myself on it, right? And I think what I've kind of learned, maybe that's why I became more a P than a J, is because I kind of started to I'd be like, okay, I have to be more aware next time, but then I try not to beat myself over it. So I think that is kind of like a way that I'm trying to cope with it.
I don't know. This is really difficult. I just think this is such a difficult topic. I think, but because there's so many variables, and then like who really understand themselves, right? And then also like I agree with Lyris exactly like how you should like constantly try to please other people. You can't, and then like, you know, because you're bound to upset certain party. So, and then at the end of the day, let's say, oh, you kind of please everybody, and yet like you yourself is not really being yourself, and you're kind of upset about that. So at the end of the day, again, you're not pleasing everybody. So it's really difficult. So that's why I don't know, like it's just why it's so important to have the experience, so important to have the wisdom. Like, and I think what I realized, I don't know, it's just that it has to start by understanding yourself, and then by understanding yourself, that's how you better serve other people. And then, but again, that's kind of like such a self-centered thought. So I don't know. That's why I think it's so much easier. It was just, again, I would just make stupid jokes, and not talking about this. I think it's so much easier. Life is so much easier.
Adulting is so hard. Adulting is like the hardest thing
Yes.
ever. So we're only supposedly adults.
I agree.
Title reference. Yeah, finally, someone bring back, like, our title finally makes sense.
Okay, wait, I just want to also clarify like whatever else I said just now, just to end up what I was in the thought process of. So like we all definitely acknowledge that this is a very, very difficult topic, and I think the reason why, or at least like I think why, is that like I guess for ourselves it's still difficult for us to like navigate or find the best way to balance everything, because we all don't have the answer. If we do, we all would be living like happy, successful lives, not giving a shit about society and living our quote-unquote authentic self. Yeah. But the reason why I wanted to talk about like that idea of like finding a job, finding university, I guess like for me, my personal experience is that like during that time when I was finding university, when I was like trying to find a job or like finding internships, there's always that sense of like that feeling of loss, or like I'm trying to find that sense of belonging, I guess. So like when I'm trying to find a job, when I'm trying to like apply to an institution, you're always trying to make sure like you are the best fit for that company. You're trying to subscribe to them and like make sure you have that certain personality. And then like bringing back to like why I asked that specifically when Calvin was talking was because like he mentioned about like I think now he's in a position of like he understands himself slightly better, and like he's a bit more comfortable. He knows his limits. He knows like, oh, what I like, what I don't like, and therefore acts accordingly, and therefore can like have the capacity to like consider other people's emotions. For me, like especially when you aren't sure about yourself, you really don't have that mental capacity to think of like how others are doing. And like even now when I can say, okay, I'm studying university, I shouldn't feel that sense of belonging, at least for now. I don't have to like worry about jobs, but even if I do have a job, I always feel like, okay, this job, what happens if it doesn't work out? There's that anxiety. If that doesn't work out, then do I have to change my personality? Like I don't know whether I can say I'll be very, very confident, or like at least in the near future I can't foresee myself saying that like, oh, like I'll be comfortable enough to say that, okay, I can handle like a situation if it's thrown at me, that kind of thing. I guess I always still have that fear. And like ultimately bringing it back, I do feel that like, yeah, finding a balance is important. So yeah, I guess we're all just trying to do the same thing, just trying not to worry too much and trying not to be so calculative on everything that we do that like it bogs us down so much that we can't function. Like, yeah, I guess that's pretty much
No,
a lot of
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. And I think as you're talking more about it, and then what I mean by understanding myself a little bit more, and then let's say put it in the context of finding a career, I think ultimately it's finding something that motivates you, what drives you, right? It could be anything. Some people motivate by money. That's why they work so hard. They want to make as much money as possible, right? But to me, I realized what really motivates me is to be able to, I guess, kind of go back to what I said before, full circle. It's that I really want to be able to have the ability to help people, right? That's my motivation. That's what drives me every day. That's what drives me to work and all that, right? So this is the reason why now I become a PhD student. That's why I gotta hesitate, because I don't really have a job. I'm a PhD student. But the reason why I want to quit my job and go become a PhD student is just because I realized, okay, right now, if I do this kind of research, I can see the impact. I can see the possibility of using this technology to actually help reach out to more people and help, right? So though I realize all of those things, all of the decisions that I make is come from the motivation that I have is to help. So maybe that, and then I know I'm in a very, very privileged situation just because like I realized, oh yeah, I can just go pursue that because I kind of know it, and because of that, I don't really have a lot of anxiety. And I know a lot of people out there, they don't really have that. It's kind of hard for them. They don't really have yet to find their passion yet. But if you can, then maybe that makes things so much easier because you kind of know like what your objectives in life, and then you just kind of go for it. So that's kind of like why I guess I pick what I do, and then this is why I'm more at ease with myself, because I kind of know this is the path that I want to go down to. So
Yeah, I agree with that. And also I really like what Jensen said, because I feel like sometimes it's like striking, okay, we've been saying this a lot, so like striking the balance.
It's true
So
though.
I understand like the motivation could be like helping other people, which is like great, because everyone has to have a drive and a motivation to keep you going, because life is hard, so you need that to drive you. But at the same time, I think when you want to help other people, you have to help yourself first, because if you are not in a like what Jansen said, if you're in a state with a lot of anxiety, you are not in a position to help other people, because sometimes you might make it worse, right? Sometimes you get dragged down, or you just break down yourself, and it's just not sustainable. So I guess my tip would be, this is something I am also learning, is to understand that you have to push yourself. You always have to have that motivation, but you don't have to do it all the time. I think this is what I was going with the feeling emotion thing, is to listen to your body and to trust yourself, and to be very aware of how your body reacts to different situation, right? So if you're an introvert, it's not saying that you cannot go out and socialize. You're not saying that, oh, because I'm an introvert, so I should never go out. Is know when to stop. So if I went to this meeting and I went to the second one, and physically I am reacting to this, I am feeling uncomfortable, then I should stop and let myself rest. It's okay to not be this hero 24/7. It's okay to find that one day if you're feeling, oh, I am feeling anxious, I am not feeling well, then I should be able to like relax.
Yeah, and I think this would tie into what Lyris just said as well, and also to what Jansen said. I just wanted to respond a little to that because I know exactly what you guys are going through right now. Career has always been something that drove me crazy. So much anxiety. I went to counseling for it. It's crazy. But then what I've learned, and also being in admissions right now, so I'm actually working in a school right now, helping, basically selecting students for the school, right? So I interview a lot of people, so they are applying. So not exactly a job, but they're always applying and we're selecting. And I think one thing, I think one thing that I learned throughout the process is, I know there is always a desire to try to fit into a certain culture, but then at the same time, you also need to remember you're the one who's going to be working there 9 to 5 every single day. If they don't like your personality, it's likely that you won't like their culture either. So you have to remember, while they are selecting you, you're also selecting, a job that you'll be working in. It's easy for me to say because I've been through that, and I remember looking at, I'm like, duh, duh, but yeah.
But it makes sense if I'm not in the
But look at that, I feel like
situation.
for me personally, after the first ever job, then the second one I tried to think more for myself. Like, would I enjoy? Because I spend so much time in the work that I do, right? So I think, I don't know, I just feel like this is something that I could throw out and hopefully help you guys.
Yeah, it's nice that like you found a job that you're helping other people on their existential crisis.
Yeah.
So I guess to wrap up, I just have one question then. I guess go back to your original question. Do you think you have a crappy personality then? Do you think you're a crappy person? Like after all this talk, do you feel like you're still a crappy person?
Like, I just want to say regarding to that point, I think like us having a conversation about it and knowing that like we are still constantly trying to change ourselves and correct ourselves, even though we've done like the personality test and like even though we're born a certain way and like we've been raised in different circumstances, like it's good that we all acknowledge that like we can be better and we're willing to change. Honestly, my pet peeve is always those people who are like, oh, like you just tell them like, oh, maybe you could have done this a bit better. And they just like stubbornly reply, oh, that's just me. Like they're embracing it so much to the extent that they refuse to change. So yeah, honestly, no matter whatever, like I don't think there's any personality where it's like, I don't know, I guess like to that point, because change is always the only constant, I think personalities that don't accept change is always the crappiest.
Yeah, no, definitely.
In my opinion. Right. I'm very
I'm sorry,
blunt, but
Jesse.
yeah.
That's just who I am. That's just who I am.
No, you change.
Try, Calvin. Try not
It
to
is
say
over.
inappropriate stuff. Then you'll be good. You're already better in yourself. I guess this is a topic that everybody relates to, I think, and it shows in how difficult this conversation went. But I don't know, I guess the major takeaway of the whole thing would be, it's okay to be aware. Like, I feel like, okay, back to Calvin's question, right? Do I have a crappy personality? I feel like every single one of them will have some crappiness in us, and there is a sucky part of us, and that is not good, and that we're selfish, we could be too egotistical, we could be too attention seeking, whatever it is, but you acknowledge it, you try to move on and try to be better in every little step that you can be, but then just don't beat yourself over it. Just know that you have the capability of becoming better, and it's okay to be bad right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing is, because I think what we can take away from this podcast is how personality change. So instead of because even if we take the personality test, it changes every time we take it. So instead of thinking who you are as a person, or if you do this one thing, then you're a crappy person, then just as like Calvin said, focus on the action. So I did this one crappy thing. Just accept the fact that everyone's flawed. Everyone has some part of crappy in you, and you just have to focus on that action. If you think that is an crappy action, then you just change it and just not think about it. It doesn't define you. One action doesn't define you. So I think that's...
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, just to also add to the previous conversation we had on nature versus nurture. So, like, I do see it as, like, a sort of a spectrum, in a sense, whether, like, your personality is, like, fully nature, whether it's fully nurtured. So, for me, it's, like, even if, like, you believe that your personality is really nature, don't be too... Like, I guess the word right now I'm thinking is like being too calculative or too caught up on your, like, what you are or what you think you are, so that to the point that you don't want to change. And like, if you're far to the other side where you feel like I can constantly change my personality to fit the situation, also don't allow yourself to be like, to kind of blame yourself too much or put so much pressure on yourself, because society puts enough pressure on us already. I think we're doing fine.
Agreed. And yeah, and then I just want to add to that, and to wrap up, I think the main take home message is really just think about when you were born and then minus 10 months from that, and then think about what that's a takeaway message. You learned anything from this podcast, this is what you learned.
That's the only thing
I was so confused what you wanted to say.
I'm sorry.
We tried so
Erase
hard
the
trying to,
memory.
deviate.
I'm sorry.
Now you
This
ended
is who
with
I
that.
am. I'm just embracing who I am. This is me. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, pet peeve.
Let's end
Okay,
this. Let's
all right.
end
I
this
think it's
ASAP,
time to go.
Thank you so much for listening.
And
to our shit.
you know why in next episode you don't hear from Calvin anymore.
Yeah. I hope this helps someone out there though.
Hey,
I really hope
hey,
this
we
helps
talk
someone.
about things that no one cares about.
Yeah. No,
That's
I really
me.
do hope that this helps. Like this helps anyone out there.
Cool. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.